Everybody. Welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Beehive. On behalf of all of us at Beyond Academics, great to have all of you here as you log in and join us. I'm going to start with some quick, not just introductions, but also some quick instructions that I'm going to leverage our partner in crime, Gabrielle, for here in a moment. But just want to say welcome. The topic today is a connected campus. It's a fascinating topic because we're going to explore everything from what a connected campus is, your view of it, our view of it. We're going to discuss what's in the way of getting there. Why haven't we had connected campuses for 10, 15 years while we're buying all this great technology? And then how can a leader, whether you're on the functional side of the house or the IT side of the house, how can you be part of guiding your school into this connected future, which you and I experience everywhere else on earth? And when we travel, when we shop, when we do anything, we're experiencing incredible technology, but for some reason we're not in a higher ed. We're going to explore why that is and how to get there. All right. So with that said, Matt and Fred are going to join me. A couple quick instructions for you. We want this to be a conversation. So we're going to start the conversation with people like Fred and Matt. I've got some questions to ask them. I want to know from Fred's perspective, what is a connected campus? Why has it been such a challenge to get there so far? How does AI and some of these emerging technologies accelerate that and make it more possible than ever before? What is this whole thing about trained AI agents? How does it play a role in functional offices? And then some tips and advice. So that's where we're going in the conversation. But the goal is to start the conversation with the guys, but for all of you to chime in and jump in and engage in the conversation as we go. There's a couple of ways you could do it. One is certainly leverage the chat. Some of you love using the chat because you could play off of each other. You could read what other people are saying and kind of engage back and forth. Love it. Do that all day long. Our team that's backstage will look for some of the great comments and conversations and bring them up on the screen. You'll literally see, just like you see the little ticker symbol thing going at the bottom, your comment may end up right there because it triggers us to pick up on it and have some fun with it. Or in some cases, you may say, look, guys, you're heading down the wrong path, or I've got a piece of insight. There's something I want to share. I have a point of view. If you have a point of view, Gabrielle, how can someone let us know that they have a point of view, in which case we can invite them on to join the conversation with us?
Yeah, so you are welcome to put in the comments that you would like to join the stage. I will also be monitoring LinkedIn and YouTube as well. So if you're on one of those platforms, feel free to ask there. And of course, if you just want to put my name into your LinkedIn, you can send me a direct link. I will also have that open as well. So we'll find a way to get you on. I wish this platform had a way for you to request to be on.
Yeah, and if you basically just get your attention, right, Gabrielle?
Yes, exactly.
Because we would love for at least a couple of you, if not more, to come up during the conversation as we have a conversation with the guys to say, hey, I've got a perspective that I want to add to. So with no further ado, let's jump right into it. Fred, what is a connected campus? When you hear that term, you've been in higher ed technology for a long time. What has that meant to you in the past? What does it mean today? Let's paint the picture. And then for those of you that are listening in, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Put them in the chat of what you believe a connected campus is. What is the picture that comes to your mind when we say that?
Yeah, exactly. Joe, Matt, good to see you. And I just want to echo what you just said. For those of you that are new to these beehives, just think of this as our living room. We're having a conversation. These are conversations we have all the time. These are some of the topics is our major areas of what we do, what we work on. Now, connected campus, I mean, obviously we've been talking about it for decades, right? We've been trying to connect all of the systems and all of the data so that we have insight and we can take action to make the student experience better, to make faculty experience, researcher experience, staff experience, to make that better. So it's not something new. It's not an aspiration that just arrived together with generative AI, obviously. But I think what we're seeing now are the outlines of having technology layers and technologies where we can radically change what connected means, right? So, I mean, a campus, at a macro level, the connected campus is literally the campus. How do we connect the campus better than we do today to industry, to the local community, to the larger economy, larger society? Because when you think about it, we're creating, higher education is in the business of educating students and sending those students into the world. How do we connect the campus better to that world? I think that's number one. Number two, how do we connect researchers and faculty, especially to their peer groups, to opportunities, to research funding, to projects around the world? I think that's another layer of connected. But when people usually talk about the connected campus, they're really thinking about the student experience, right? How do I connect the students, or how do I reimagine the way the student interacts at the university? And the way I would look at it, and the way I do look at it, is, for those of you that studied architecture, know a little bit of architecture, right? You hear about the quad, right? Where you have universities, physical universities. Hey, we're meeting in the quad, etc. These old universities were actually designed on purpose to create opportunities for students to meet each other, right? For faculty and students to meet each other in physical spaces outside of the formal classroom. We need to now move to a place where we're creating those digital spaces as well. And I think with the various AIs and machine learnings and not natural language processing, I think we're going to get there. But from a student's perspective, I would say the connected campus is where a student has hyper personalization based on data that's available in real time, and modulated and curated basically by an intelligent platform. I think that to me would be a connected campus.
Cool. And Matt, you've been watching some of the comments coming in of as people are describing connected campus from their perspective. What's jumping out at you, and kind of what's the picture in your mind?
Yeah, so for me, this is coming full circle for me, right? Because when I was at Deloitte, I was thinking about smart campuses there, right? Because what we're building is a smart campus. Now, a smart campus comes from what we call a smart city. And what those smart cities are doing is connecting all the technology and data that is going to allow the citizens to have better experiences. So when I was thinking about smart campuses, my goal was, how do I create a better experience using all of these, technologies, whether it's, the Wi-Fi or the routers or the data elements from the different dispersed systems. That was what I was thinking when I first started to think about a smart campus. Now it's come full circle, because now we're not just thinking about those routers and Wi-Fi. We're now thinking about what Freddie just said, is the human experience, the information we gather around the behavioral elements of students. And the only way we could really manage to that is to understand the data that is triggering. So why does a student do certain things? So now with AI, you add AI into the mix of this. Not only do we have all the AI, the location intelligence, the routers, the data, all that stuff, we now have AI to start to look at the different behaviors of that can be harvested from that intelligence. And the other way was we could heat up the room to a certain temperature. We can get people into classrooms faster. It was all very physical. Here, what we're now going to see in a connected campus is the ability for us to use data to transform the experiences of a student through the journey of a campus, whether it's to open a door, or whether it's to open new careers, whether it's to open new opportunities, getting them through processes faster. We're going to see that as being a connected campus. And that's going to require data from all over the place.
But I would say specific with some use cases here in a moment. But so far, between what the two of you are saying and what I'm watching people share in the comments, there's a seamlessness to the data, right? Because right now it sits all over the place. A connected campus makes data seamlessly available to the people who need it. There's a frictionless side to the experience where I'm not logging into 7 different places to figure out what to do. It's somewhat seamless and frictionless for me. And then it's real time. The interaction is real time. I'm not an administrator or an executive getting last month's data or even last week or yesterday's data. Or if I'm a student, I'm not having an experience based on my grades that got submitted last week. It's a lot more real time than that. And then Fred, you bring up an interesting point. It's not just the connected part of the physical campus or the digital campus. It's the entire ecosystem that the campus is connected to, right? Like you said, industry, employers, the community. That's a connected campus because it sees itself as not a bubble, but it sees itself as part of a much larger organism.
Yeah, and I think as a Brian, I don't know who brought that up, but that's Brian, thank you for being here. You're absolutely right, right? I mean, eventually, once we take away that friction, right? Once we have all those technical components in place and the governance in place and the security in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, what is the purpose of this connected campus? And I think what Brian is saying is exactly right, right? I mean, ideally, technology can be a tool to enable those connections, deeper connections, perhaps more interesting connections between students, between peers, between faculty and students, and projects and passions, and etc. And then that can extend eccentric, in concentric circles into the wider society as well. But I think, Brian, great point. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a purpose of why we're doing this. Technology is not the purpose. Technology is the
Let me ask the two of you this question, and I'm also when I'm asking the guys the question, I'm also asking all of you listening. And we've got members from Higher Education User Group, we lovingly call HUG, who are here with us. We'll see, this is all part of building up towards the Alliance Conference coming up in the spring. So we'd love to hear from some of you. So my question to you is, okay, I don't believe that a connected campus is something new when we talk about vision, right? People here have been involved in the industry for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and it's always been a dream. It's always been a vision. So the question for the two of you, and then also for our audience, is why has it been such a challenge to get there? What are some reasons that come top of mind for you? What's kept us from achieving a connected campus?
You want to take that, Matt? I could take it as well. That doesn't matter.
Well, I think it goes back to some of the things that Vistap and Brian was saying, is that everyone thinks it's an IT concept. It's even the word connected campus, they think it's a back office connection. How do we connect everyone? The data elements, and we're now at a place where we're thinking differently, right? And so I think part of I would say the failure or the lack of adoption is there hasn't been a lot of strategy. We've also been talking about cloud and all these other technologies without actually pausing and saying, how do we start to create a better experience through that process, right? And I think that's going to be a really important piece. I think adoption is going to be taken around Connected Campus when we actually prove to them that it actually is a better experience. And when you connect all of the things that need to be connected in a campus, that you then are going to drive towards a better experience as we go. So hey, Brian, how you doing?
Yeah, Fred, I want to hear a couple from you, and then we'll hear from our industry futurist here. And then, Brian, if you don't mind, take a look. I'm assuming you can see the chat. Bill Heinrich makes a comment about people in disciplines don't really have the incentives philosophically to make connections. So maybe you could kind of build that into some of your comments that you're going to share with us. But Fred, why haven't we gotten there? Why didn't we get there 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago? All the money spent in, but for now, technology transformation, all the money spent in change management and people development, and we're not a whole lot closer to the goal than we were 10 years ago.
I think the technologies to enable this have to go through a certain maturity and evolution. There are certain technologies you need to enable certain outcomes. Besides that, implementing technologies and connecting things is hard work. I mean, things break all the time, right? And if you look at the systems that run a university, really is almost like a digital DNA of a university. So with that comes culture, organizational design, politics, etc. So just keeping pace with the change of technology and the changes that a campus requires to operate day to day, it's hard work. So and
everyone's busy, to your point,
and everybody's busy.
Where do you find time? Okay,
right. But then also, the focus of what we're trying to enable. I think, unfortunately, a lot of IT and a lot of IT frameworks have become an end to itself, as opposed to really looking at what are we trying to enable there, and how do we get the right structures in place to help the Bryans of the world.
Okay. So Brian, as we've been kicking off the conversation, either on the topic of what your vision of a connected campus is, or why it's been such a challenge to get there, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting, Matt, and thank you for everybody at Beyond Academics for making this platform work. I think for most people within academia, they hear connected campus and they think it's IT. It's going to be software, it's going to be hardware, it's going to be networks, it's going to be documents. And they mentally then pigeonhole that and say, well, that's what the CIO does. That's what the head of IT does. This is, we're going to take a look at security or networking, maybe back end stuff, maybe front end stuff, because they have many, many other units that are responsible for the other forms of connection we're talking about. If you're interested in connecting faculty, staff, and students to the local economy, they have VPs, and that's their entire job. If you're interested in connecting them to alumni, we have development. That's its entire job. We want to connect them to the more prospective students. We've got admissions and so on. In the chat, Arlene Salvino says the biggest challenge is silos.
Sure.
Academia loves silos. In fact, but I would disagree, Arlene. The term is not silo. The term is cylinder of excellence. And I think this is a problem. I think the campus IT has done tremendous work in making the cyber infrastructure work. I mean, it's a tremendous revolution in campuses. But I think in many ways they're boxed in.
But Brian, you as an academic and a futurist, like what in your mind, if there was a connected campus that would align with the way the things that you would like to connect, what would that look like?
Depending on how far out you want to go, I would definitely include AI to some extent. And by that, I mean both generative AI as well as other forms of AI.
Exactly.
I would definitely include making the ivory tower wall much more porous so that there is a better relationship between the immediate community and the campus, as well as between the campus and the broader world.
Yep.
I think that the silos I was teasing Arlene about, in many ways, we have to tumble them down. We have to better support interdisciplinary research, better support interdisciplinary teaching, better support students' access to careers that go beyond all of these different boundaries. And that's for a start. I think right now with, not to get political, but with the election, this is going to be very difficult because many academics are going to feel themselves to be very defensive. They're very concerned about what a Trump administration might do. They're going to be concerned about what their states might do or how funders will be changing their attitudes. And I think a very, very human response to threat is to turtle down, right? Is to put up walls and not to change. And I think that's going to be a great, big challenge for all of you trying to make the connected campus work.
Yep.
For all of us that are on stage, can you do a quick sound check with your mic and just hit mute? Because people are saying there's a little feedback showing up somewhere. And we'll just test and see where it may be coming from. So Bill,
It might have been Bill. It might have been Bill.
Yes, Bill, jump back on as soon as you see, or jump back on and let's test to see if it comes back when you come back on with us, because we don't want to miss the conversation with you, but it sounds like it may have been coming from your system. So here, gentlemen, and everyone listening, politics can play a role, right? I'm just not even talking politics, American politics, but also politics within the campus. The cylinders of excellence, all formerly known as silos, have played a role. IT bandwidth, Fred, like everyone's maxed out, right? Just keeping the lights on. Where can I find the bandwidth to go design this stuff? Matt, to your point, sometimes even lack of vision, right? We go and buy stuff, but it's not connected to a greater strategy. The student's not truly the center of it all. And that can impact why we haven't gotten there. And then, one interesting point I want to throw out there for some of you to consider, because I've seen this in some of the schools we've worked with or even talked about working with. A lot of times, and I'm going back to the technology side of the house now, technology doesn't even know all the systems being used on the campus to even connect them in the first place, right? When we did the look at a few schools, they were surprised to know, oh, we have that subscription and we pay $100,000 a year for it and no one really knows about it. And not to mention all the shadow systems that run, right? All the macros and the cool little Excel spreadsheets that build our schedules and stuff. How do you connect a campus when you don't even know all the behemoth of stuff that has to be connected? So I think that can be an issue as well. And Matt, one of your favorite topics is if we're building institution-centric strategy, it's really hard to build a connected campus, right? Because everyone's got their cylinder of excellence.
Well, I think they're gonna. What happens is when you have an institution-centric strategy, it's all about the operations behind the scenes of how to run a campus more effectively. So they may create better experiences for your HR director, your financial aid director, but you actually are never really focused on the actual constituent that is impacted, whether it's the the employee on campus, or the student, the parent. I think we have to pause and say, how do we change that experience? Even experiences that we have today are things that we all went through school when we didn't have computers. I was in lines. I was in Scantrons. I mean, we follow the same model. Shame on us. Shame on us for not. We're spending 40 million, 30 million, 100 million to do the same thing. Shame on us for doing that. We have to start to think about the campus in a much different way as we go forward. So, hey, Joe, I'm going to bring Bill back on, see if his sound
let's do an audio test, Bill.
and then if he is bad, we'll get his question and we'll move him back on. But there you go, Bill.
Hey
Sounding
guys,
good, Bill.
is the audio okay?
Yeah,
Apologies
no
before.
problem.
I don't really have a question here. I was making the point that, our disciplines, as Brian mentioned, and nice to see you, Brian, these silos of excellence, continue, and there's not a lot of incentive for that to change. I think the echoes in all the comments are correct. IT is an issue, but our willingness or interest in connecting, and Matt, to your point, it's most important that, folks are interested in overcoming or doing things differently. If they are institution centric, which I believe many are, that's what we're going to see replications of. As I follow these webinars, who is it? Michael Horn and Jeff Slingo's podcast in the last month covered Western Governors University is a good example. Very student centric, very much an interest in how a student learns flexibly, how adult and working learners learn. And it's a good example. There's a half a dozen others, Arizona State, Southern New Hampshire, these big programs that have become entirely flexible. But yeah, and then I'll just add one more thing. I'm conducting some research, and this is a little bit anecdotal. Well, it's not anecdotal. The research is around experiential learning ecosystems on campus.
Hmm.
And I'm seeing all these directors of experiential learning pop up. This is my area. And so I was wondering why is this happening and why now? And we have some answers to that question, or to those questions, which we'll publish. We're working on a book. But the other part of it is the experiential learning as a concept is a kind of bridge from silo to silo, and from silo throughout an institution, and maybe even outside the institution. So it's been an interesting journey to sort of consider how experiential learning as a philosophy, and then a broad set of pedagogies, has the capacity to get our interests aligned in new ways. Maybe not every campus is going to do it the same way. That's almost never true.
But that's encouraging though, Bill, because we can't wait to see what your research outcomes are. But if it is true that this could pave the way for more innovation from the academic side of the house, more collaboration and true interdisciplinary stuff, maybe the academic side of the house and the classroom experience of the student trails the rest of their student experience, right? Because there's a whole other part of the student experience that isn't happening in the classroom that's still stuck in the 1990s. So could we lead with that? And this is my thought to all of us listening. If we start to make that the lighthouse, and then bring them along as we go, maybe that gets us there.
So Bill in his comment and what he said was there's no incentive for people to make this change. So I would love this audience. I'm going to bring up Catherine also in a second. What is the incentive? Because if they are wearing an institution-centric mindset, their incentive is not student-centric. It's not the outcomes of what everyone says, student success, and then all of a sudden they're spending millions on non-student success kind of initiatives. It just doesn't make sense. So what is the incentives, Joe? And on that piece, they just hijacked it, right? They just hijacked funding where student success really needs this type of thought process. How do we incentivize it? How do we shed light? How do we shed light on where people should be doing it, and where do we what is the incentive that can get them there? And Bill, you asked the question. You said there was no incentives. Maybe the question is why, and then Joe, you can take it.
I think Brian's taking this in the right direction by saying, and this goes back to what Bill said, every institution has different priorities, right? For some, it's survival. For some, it's making that top list. For some, it's whatever it is, right? Student success. For some, it's making sure if they're a community college that no student is turned away from the opportunity to get an education, right? So I think it's on a school by school basis. What's your thing? And then how do we tie this kind of transformation to that thing? Which would mean your strategy is totally different. What you do is totally different. But I think to try and do a one size fits all for all of higher education won't work. I think it's to each school's individual thing.
Joe, maybe if I can make actually piggyback off two comments that I'm seeing in the comment section. Number one, if you read the comments, you'll notice that instinctively a lot of people kind of realize that our focus is not in the right area, right? So for example, in IT, it's all about the ERP, right? That's where the funding goes. That's where most of the staff goes. That's where all the troubles are. By the way, extremely important. It's the backbone of your university, of your administrative side of the university. So I think that's number one. So I'm very happy to see that people realize, hey, we need to shift that focus. We need to shift to more on the academic side, on the experience side. I think that's number one. And then number two, to Brian's point, which I think is an excellent point, is that I think this is my gut. I think that there's going to be so many little experiments and companies popping up, related to using AI to teach, to be a tutor, to be an academic tutor, trying to solve Bloom's two sigma problem, etc. I think that's going to spur perhaps some introspection.
So let's get some thoughts from Catherine, who, based on your tagline, Catherine, are going to be a very busy bee for the next 5 or 6 years. We'll share some of your thoughts as you've been listening in.
Well, I mean, I have like 35 years of experience in higher ed, so I've been there kind of like in the trenches. I've also been a consultant, and I think one of the things that has always been a frustration is just the way that different projects get prioritized and funded. So in the warehouse, like a lot of what has happened in certain instances is we decide we're going to get a new ERP, let's say it's finance, and we build one warehouse for that. And then we get HR and we build a different one for that. And then this, the student systems are so different that, one campus or one unit does their own warehouse for student stuff. And the result is this dispersal of focus and a lack of sort of enterprise data architecture that is reusable. So we spend a lot of time building out purpose-built things that then aren't flexible enough for us to reuse them as the business changes, or as we want to ask different questions. And then just the getting of the data into
it's hard work,
environment
yeah,
where it all talks together. There's no linkage, and then it's like, well, we put this hierarchy in the HR system and this hierarchy is over here, and we have the academic hierarchy. We can't, it just makes it
Catherine,
so hard.
So Catherine, are we just focused on the wrong priorities? Should the priority be the alignment of data, the alignment of information, especially in the world that we're now going into, the world of AI, where a configured system is only going to give you so much, but a system that is highly organized and thought through is going to be able to leverage this new technology, which right now it's just called AI, but in the world of how we will operate. And that's where the connectedness will come from. And yeah, sure, we can open doors, we can figure out all these things, but man, if we can get this data together, and I see you're a data governance analyst coach, and it was good to see you at EDUCAUSE, by the way. Are we just not in the right priority in the mindset? Because everyone, and I'm not against doing a ERP and SIS. People think I am. I'm not. I'm just telling you that let's do it right in the proper way and prioritizing it. Because I think that's the long-term value we're going to see with AI, is that data being structured in a certain way. So,
in a different way. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
I agree.
Matt, before I bring on one of my favorite people in the world,
thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
We just need to spend more time together, Catherine. I spend a lot of time with MJ. So, Fred, as you're listening in a minute, I'm going to have us start to paint the picture of what a connected campus could look like in today's world. We couldn't imagine this being possible 5 years ago, but what's possible now? So you can prep your thoughts on that, both you and Matt. MJ, I remember you posting a thought in here saying, as busy as you are, you're having to prioritize. Like, hey, there's only so much of the pie available, so we're going to put it into very specific areas. What are a couple of areas NDC is kind of hyper-focusing its resources and strategy and investment, let's say, to connect the campus?
At the beginning when we started gathering our data, and we've been going at this for the last 4 years, we had the same issues. We counted like 27 systems that somehow touched the student one way or another. And so we had to prioritize, what do we want to do first? And the first thing we thought was important was, because at the time our enrollment was truly tanking, was let's go look at enrollment. So that's what we did. We focused on getting our data around enrollment. Since then, and good to report, we had a board meeting today and the president was talking about, we had an over 9.2% increase in enrollment last year. That's pretty phenomenal considering what's going on, and especially a school like ours. I mean, we offer from certificates all the way to bachelor's degree, even non-credit. We offer everything. So for us, it's a huge, big deal. Next thing we're focusing on is really student success. And we're specifically calling student success a completer. Whether you come for a certificate or whether you come to complete your bachelor's degree with us, we want to walk you through that aisle. We want to put a robe on you, for heaven's sakes. We want to do that. And it is so hard to get our students there. Remember, our student population we're an open door institution. So you have to meet a few criteria, but pretty much we let you in. So how do we move that needle of completers? We don't even call them graduate. We call them completers. Some people are not interested in graduating. They have a goal. Did we meet your goal for your, stay with us? And that is what we're heading for next. That is really difficult to do. It is so difficult to do that we are now thinking that we even have to study our alumni population. What were the completers? What did they do? How were they successful? The amount of data that we have is so astronomical. Okay, we generate almost about 1.6 million credits a year. It's so astronomical that even the space that we need, the capacity that we need, the staff that we need, the knowledge that we need to mine that data is really, really intense. But again, we prioritized it. And so now the president,
you prioritized data, more specifically enrollment data, so you can even understand what was going on. So
correct.
Resources went into that, focus went into that, people went into that, right? Innovation went into that. Then as soon as you start to see the data, you're like, oh my gosh, completion is an issue.
Correct.
Let's now focus our best people, our best energy, our best innovators on that and solve for that, right? And sometimes a lot of schools try and eat the elephant in one bite, and you're doing it, strategically.
Well, our elephant is not even an elephant. It's like a gigantic, like we have that mammoth whale, whatever that is. Yeah. So priorities have been really important to us. And then listen, we're a state institution. We have limited resources. No matter what we do, we have limited resources. So it's a task. But the other thing I would say is
I can brag on you for this because you almost single-handedly led this. At your institution, the president gave you a vision of, hey, I just need good data. And you went and built a connected system. So like if we think connected campus, this is like a small piece of it, but like in almost real time, data from multiple systems provide insight on what's going on every single day. So she can log in the morning and see, okay, here's our picture. Let's make strategic decisions from here.
Yeah, we call it the health of the institution. So she has an executive dashboard that every morning updates everything that we did the day before and gives her an update. And the beauty of what we've done is, and if I knew then what I know now, I would have ran away, but that once people got engaged, it became easier and easier to do. Once we have 8 campuses, and we're spread out through Dade County, as you know. But once our leadership at each campus got engaged, then things started to change. When we started building the dashboard, I worked directly for the president, and so she was our champion in this project, if you will. But I said to her, "We're ready, and we're going to do training, and she goes, "No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm going to do that for you." And if you know our president, she's everywhere. But she decided that her cabinet meetings were going to be about the dashboard. So immediately I would get calls, "MJ, we need access. We need training." And I go, "Oh, no, just go to the president's meeting. You'll get the training." She did it herself. And as well, Joe, she is the biggest advocate for us looking at our data, connecting our data. Don't come talk to her unless you have a data-driven recommendation of some
I think
kind.
that's that part of focus. Matt?
Joe, everyone, in higher ed talks about enrollment, right? And it's all where enrollment's up, where enrollment's down. That's just it's just one element of your campus. The real data that you should be looking at enrollment is the behavioral patterns of why someone is getting into a course, why someone is wanting to take a course, why a student has paused to taking a course. There's these. That's when this connected campus is going to be really powerful. It isn't just the dashboard of the 10th day census and all that stuff. That's great. It's all static. We got to get to a point of how do we look under the hood of the enrollment strategies that are inside of these campuses, right? Because enrollment strategy doesn't stop at matriculation, right, MJ? It goes through the life of that student and the course itself. Why we should be looking at each of these courses, and MJ will agree with me on why is someone doing well or not well? What are the things that is influencing them to do better in the next course? My God, isn't that the business we're in? Aren't we in the business to improve the outcome? And MJ talks about the completion. Well, if that's the case, every step should be analyzed in terms of that completion, right? And right now, we don't do that. We still think, if I can get the next set of students enrolled, I'm doing really well at my campus. No, you're not. You have really poor experience. You have really poor, and your students are barely getting through the process, right? So opening under the hood of enrollment is going to be the next layer of how this connected campus is going to be really driven.
Yeah, but you need all this other data. You need to know which are the not profitable, but which are the courses that are losing money. Yeah. It's all the data. It's not just the enrollment. There's so many other things that lead to financial performance dropping. And so that's sort of where, if you're focusing too much on any one thing at one time to the exclusion of the others, then sometimes you're missing how do we talk to the faculty about the courses and things like that, and their faculty headcount and what they're doing, etc.
It's a little bit of ownership, Catherine. We got to get people to own the data that we're actually asking them to have metrics on. I think that is part of this experience that we have to create a connected campus, is we need to give them visibility on what they themselves are doing to influence the outcome of that student. And you know what? Maybe it is painting a picture for everybody that's part of the journey of that student. How is that? How is the work you're doing influencing the positivity of the accomplishments of that outcome that you're really trying to get to?
So I want to bring us to this picture of a connected campus, right? My question now to those of you that are here, as well as those of you that are listening in and in the chat, what does a connected campus look like or feel like? What's the experience? And let's look at it maybe through the student lens. What's your expectation of what a connected campus looks and feels like to a student? I'll start with Fred, then I'll go to MJ, and then Bill and Brian, if you have anything, feel free to share. And then Catherine.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's really two key components. The first component is we need to move to a world where the student only interacts with one system, right? And that system needs to be able to refactor itself intelligently based on the task that a student is working on, right? If they're going through admissions, it's doing that. If it's advising, it's doing that. If it's in classroom, it's doing that. All that data needs to be basically audited and used, and be usable data to have hyper personalization and almost real-time interaction, right? So I really mean an intelligent platform. And I'm seeing the outlines of capabilities today. It'll be done with a variety of AIs, not just generative AI, but causal AI and machine learning and natural language processing, etc. But then also with with agents. But that requires, to a certain extent, an intelligent data layer as well, right? I mean, it's one thing to take your data and throw it into a data lake and then do your analysis on that when it's needed. That's a very different model than having real-time data that you can combine in, with knowledge graphs, etc., that then is usable in real time and can be combined with other data on the fly. That's a different way of dealing with data and working with data, which also requires a different set of tools and perhaps even a different set of organizational designs.
So what I'm picking away from you is a lot of cool stuff happening in the background, driven by an intelligent layer that's plugging into all the school systems. We talked about 38 here, 100 there.
Sure.
But one layer, but for the student, it's one pane of glass. They're logging into one place, and it's their guide, it's their coach, it's their walker througher of anything they need done, right, to improve their experience. Okay, cool.
Right. Yeah. You could start doing, quote unquote, interventions in real time, right? If for example, we know of one school that uses Slack for their students, so there's a lot of interaction for classes, etc. And they have an AI agent running that monitors engagement, and when engagement is not at the level where they would like to see, there's certain red flags. It intervenes, say, hey, little nudging, right? So a lot of the terms we've been using for a long time, right? Nudging technology. It's just that now we're getting technology where it actually becomes fairly easy. Not easy, but fairly easier to implement.
But I think the fact that we can see engagement data, we're going to be using AI to determine sentiment. What is the question? What are the concerns? How does the facial recognition of that student answering a question come into play? Like, we're going to start seeing that as an ability to at least monitor the sentiment of what students are saying, looking like, feeling like, and where we're then going to be able to let humans step into those times.
So Brian, you kind of put a thing in the chat about, me as a student, my interface with the institution is kind of this AI experience like I would be having anywhere else. Any more thoughts you want to share on that, or you want to expand that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think a single pane of glass would be great. And in fact, that's the kind of thing I've been hoping for a device, one that would be transparent rather than opaque. But I'm wondering if we should follow some of Silicon Valley's promptings to think about this as AI first. If we can actually realize the dream of an intelligent agent, that might be a good way for a student to experience all these data streams. All the data will be in the back end. They wouldn't have to be visible. The AI could then wrangle all kinds. I put a few examples rather in the chat. Imagine an AI that is able to connect the student to their advisor, to their LMS, to their ERP, can remind them of paying that parking ticket, could talk to them about upcoming musical on campus, could remind them to study for that bio exam that they keep missing. I mean, that's not that challenging. At the same time, it can really integrate all of these and work on them together, and that would be creative. That would be challenging. Ultimately, it's a lot of work, but that would be a very, very different interface experience for students.
And I also think, Brian, I 100% agree with you. I was trying to be not as ambitious as you because I thought that perhaps I was being too ambitious, but I 100% agree with what you're saying. But I think what you're also seeing in the comments that it will take a rethinking and a reframing of how our organizations operate, right? And where we put our budget, where we put our technology budget, what type of people we're hiring, and I think that's going to be a bit of the challenge. Is to reframe for IT that it's not about upgrading to the next ERP. It's about keeping your ERP, alive for as long as you can at a cost-effective way, but starting to focus on all these other technologies that surround it, what we call the systems of systems, to then drive interaction. But yeah,
So
I 100% agree.
they have to be, but not just interaction. They also have to be about student success.
Right.
And that student success has got to be multi-leveled. I mean, partly it's do they pass classes? Do they get a degree? Because that's one of the most important things. But also, are they actually connected with potential employers through internships? How is their mental health? I mean, this is a crisis that presidents and provosts are really focused on. And, are they networking with other students? I mean, that kind of student focus is the best way, I think, to get IT out of the basement and to get people elsewhere on campus actually working.
So Brian, we talk about, and this is my pet peeve. We talk about student success, but we don't actually ever define it. And Brian, I'd love to work with you on this topic itself, is because I think because there's no clarity and because it's a gray line and because everyone can claim student success with some sort of data element on their campus and say, yes, we're achieving student success. So one of the problems we're having is to really build what I would call an incentivized ecosystem, as Bill kind of has spoken about, is we need clarity on what it is that we're trying to do. Because if we're going to incentivize IT to think differently, if we're going to incentivize faculty to think differently, for staff to think differently, well, we better put some measures on what that means in a student success world. Because right now, IT is just spending money on institution-centric back office technology when they should be focused on all of the things in a connected campus that's going to incentivize the completion of that student's goal, right? Whether it's the 5-hour course or it's a 120-hour degree, it's the returning of them to campus. So there's this clarity on the word success and student, and then it is how do you associate metrics to that, and then how do you incentivize the IT shop, the faculties, the staff to focus on those things. And I then think they will then think about data and everything else that comes into that is necessary to play a role.
Yeah, and Bill, your point about this experience that the students having in their school should should almost continue past that, where their learner record and all their skills and all their knowledge are being captured and then owned by them to share. And I know Maryville University and Miami-Dade are probably leading the charge on that, with taking all the credentials, putting it in a digital blockchain wallet. The student owns the record. They can share it with whoever they want. They don't have to call Mrs. Jones, to lick an envelope and send another transcript out. So that's coming. There's some schools leading the way, and others will be joining soon.
Yeah, I think that's entirely necessary. It's an endpoint for an enrollment at one institution. Our students are going to come back to us for updates to their education. They're going to come back for short-term credentials. They're going to come back to pivot in their careers. All of those credentials and skill sets and competency profiles need to add to that LER. So this is an ongoing thing. And all of this AI conversation and efficiency on campus supports that. It also ultimately creates some enrollment benefits in that we get some of these students to come back. But all of that requires our disciplinarians and faculties and departments to shift gears from degree granting, institutional rewards, to skills granting and breaking down what we already do into different and smaller pieces. We don't do that really well traditionally. The other part of that, the description, Matt, you gave of the internal workings of how an AI could help a campus diagnose and read the face of someone. It seems like we should train our AIs on academic advisors. These folks are at that nexus of faculty and student affairs and student life and student success, and they're reading the faces of the students.
Yeah.
And so I'll just leave that there because, you know,
Bill,
if
Bill
we can do that, yeah,
in about a few months, you're going to start seeing things that we're working on is specific to an informed advisor with the data elements that is necessary for them to walk students through. Because, you know, in some schools, it's one advisor to like 300 or 800. I don't know what the number is on it, but it's big. It's not small, right? They think about the amount of information that they can absorb on that one student. It's very little. Now, if we use a connected campus to start thinking about this, think about all the elements around that student that is coming to inform that advisor to it. So yeah, stay tuned on that of the things that we're working on, because I think we're coming to that direction in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in the time we have remaining, I'd love for some of you to share, how does a school, or in this case, someone listening is just a functional leader or working in the IT shop or just a manager or director, how does one kind of start the journey or get things moving in this area of getting to a connected campus? Because I think all of us want that student experience that you're describing here. All of us want the outcomes of the school to be driven by the best and greatest technology. How do we get there? Fred, I'll start with you. MJ, I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the things you're doing at your school, but also some of the challenges you're having in getting people on board for something like this. Fred, how do we go about it?
I think first of all, admitting and then working towards understanding that that's a direction you want to take as an organization. And, you know, speaking specifically as a former IT person and for the IT department, accepting the fact that you are always understaffed, overworked, there's too much work. So realizing that, what are the steps that you can take actively, you know, in organizational design, in the way you design even job descriptions, the way you empower your employees, the way your department works with other departments within the university ecosystem, so you can actually leverage a lot of the talent that's already available. Like, for example, if AI is an issue, for example, right? If at most universities, at most colleges, IT shops, there's going to be few people that perhaps are dabbling in AI, but yet you're probably have a bachelor's in science in AI, right? Or right, exactly. Utilize that. You have professors, you know, work with those. But I think step number one is from an organizational perspective and from an organizational focus, realize you need to go into a different direction, and then start prioritizing and creating steps to move into that direction.
Okay, MJ, what if you were tasked with, okay, we're going to bring AI in, or we have to really modernize for this frictionless experience? How would you go about it? What would be like your step one, step two, step three?
Well, we've already created a task force. I think you already know. And I serve on the task force as needed because I have other roles too. But I'm going to go back to a simple concept of setting goals. I agree completely with what Fred said. Yes. And you've got to look at your system and what are your capabilities and what cannot do. But if you come into a conversation and you set a very high goal and you say, you know, we want to grow our completer rate by 10% within the next 3 years. You already have your goal. Now you go and find out what it's going to take for me to get to that goal. And it sounds so simple, but I'm going to tell you, when we started our data analysis, we were just looking at static data. So we were just producing compared to last year, you know, all that stuff that you would think you would want to know. And it's true, you want to know. But then we also said, what's our goal? Like, where do we want to be? And well, our president set a mighty goal. She said, I want highest plus 5%. And we knew what that meant. We knew highest for us was as of the implementation of our last ERP. So whatever the highest was since 2016, and here we were in 2021. And so that was the goal, highest plus 5%. Happy to say today we meet that goal. And when we first set the goal, it was like, that's impossible. Like, how are we ever going to, some of the campuses, it was like, this is not going to happen. You're going to deflate that team. They're going to fall apart on you. But no, that's not what happened. They had a goal. They had a mission, a vision, and support. And if you set a goal where people understand your goal and you're there to support them, there's no reason why you can't actively keep working on the goal. And so for us, the graduation, she hasn't set the goal, but whatever our completer goal is, that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with where we want to be and when. And then we're going to look at the pieces that it's going to take for us to get there. And it's, it's always a big task. There's always not enough people, not enough time, whatever. But if you get enough people with the understanding of the mission and the vision, you'll get there. People rise when you tell them with clarity where you're going and what you need to do, they'll rise to that. I've seen it over and over again.
Love it. Matt, some closing thoughts from you on this connected campus. We talked about what it could look like. We've talked about what gets in the way or what historically has gotten in the way. How can people listening in start to remove some of those obstacles? MJ and Fred have pointed out the importance of, first, you have to have a point of view. Where does this connected campus thing fit into our larger strategy? And MJ saying you got to have a goal that potentially connected campus fits into, right? What else do you feel is important that should be happening at schools and campuses right now towards this model?
So higher ed is followers. They follow. They're risk averse. I would say the best thing to do to embark on something like this is to start small on the use cases that are really high impactful and very easy to do, right? So, and that's how we're tackling it. We're proving it by tackling the more simpler things or the more complex things and starting to do it. So I would say the first thing that people that want to get to a connected campus is to start with very, what I call micro elements of your AI, not AI in improving, your process in your current, large mammoth system. That's not, that isn't the AI strategy that I'm talking about. I'm talking about reinventing a process from scratch using an AI, the advantages of AI, and then starting to show the outcomes that could be fostered from that. And once you start to show it and prove it, higher ed will follow. Your campus will follow. And I would say an easy brainstorm, and we're doing that as we go. And I invite everyone. We're about to build out some really cool stuff, and we want you to be a part of that conversation, because I think we want to find all those micro impactful AI solutions where I think we can start to prove to market, wow, this is much more cost effective. This is much more element. And then what'll come out of there, Joe, is a strategy around how do you get there.
Sounds good.
And that'll be the driver.
But I think that
you got about a minute to finish this up and close this up.
No, I was just going to say I agree with Joe and with Matt, that what's interesting is that we're not a product company. We don't want to be a product company, right? We're starting to build some platforms simply because that's a direction we need to go in, and we're not seeing market going into that direction. We'll build it, right? Will it be perfect? Oh, but we'll build it together.
Yeah, and so we know where the gaps are because we've put all these systems in. We know those gaps. So what we're looking at is, where are the gaps, and how does AI play a role in building and bridging those gaps to meet a need that's in the marketplace, as opposed to, let me put in a large whatever system for AI and we're going to do this and that. You're not going to get the momentum. You got to start small. You got to start getting those early wins. Once you start having early wins, your president will buy in, your provost will buy in, your faculty will buy in, your staff will buy in, and boom, you now have a connected campus because everyone's on.
Summary closing thought for today would be, no matter what role you have at your institution campus, what is a micro innovation you could do that improves something but builds towards a connected campus? Spend some time thinking about it. If you come up with that, and if you think it's big enough, we'd love to hear about it, because we'd love to build it into the platform. But even if it's something small you do yourself, I think you'll go a long way in serving your students, your faculty, your staff, and your institution. Thanks everyone for being with us. Thanks for all that joined the chat and shared your ideas, as well as those of you that came on stage to share with us. We'll see you all next time.